Good afternoon.
Ready? Okay.
The acting secretary and Minister Hill are now signing a cooperative agreement between the United States and the government of El Salvador.
Okay, two more. Congratulations. We're almost there. Felicitaciones. Yes, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Now we'll have brief remarks from Minister Hill.
Good afternoon, everyone, members of the press. Sir, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for being here with us today. As you all know, irregular immigration has been an issue for El Salvador for the last 30-odd years. And now we've reached levels where it is extremely, extremely important that both the United States and El Salvador deal with this issue conjointly. My President Bukele, since day one, changed this policy 180 degrees. We are now allies with the United States after more than a decade of a government that was pro-Chavez. And we are working every single day to try to solve this issue of people who, by various reasons of insecurity or reasons of death threats, are forced to leave our country. President Bukele has been clear in saying that this is El Salvador's responsibility, because El Salvador has not been able to give our people enough security or opportunities so that they can stay and thrive in El Salvador. Obviously, they are migrating to the United States, and we are signing, or we've signed this document today in order to work together in different areas. But the main issue is to protect our people that are forced to flee the country. We are talking about giving them secure alternatives and finding and increasing legal alternatives to safe migration. This is what this general memorandum of agreement contains. President Bukele has worked since day one. We've been in government for 108 days, and we've worked since day one in two issues: increasing security, individual and collective security for our most vulnerable population, the ones that are forced to flee the country, and opening up to business and investment in El Salvador so that people will find that they can stay and that they have opportunities and that they can, again, grow in El Salvador, that their children are safe in El Salvador. But in the meantime, we cannot solve this problem in 100 days. In the meantime, we have visited, we have spoken with, and we have reached agreements with the United States to work in a win-win situation and deal with this together. I mean, when we talk about illegal or forced migration, sometimes we lose the concept that there are human beings behind this. These are human beings that are suffering, human beings that are trying to find a better future for them and their children, You must all remember the case of Oscar and Vanessa, the dad with a young child, the picture that was caught that they drowned trying to cross the Rio Grande. And that hits El Salvador in the heart. And that also hits the United States in the heart. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So we are in constant communication, in constant coordination, and the United States and El Salvador, through this general agreement, are committing to working and to give the best of both countries in order for these people, or to avoid any situation like Oscar and Valeria's, to more of our people that need, that have no option but to risk their lives to try to find a better future. Thank you very much again, and I leave with the Secretary.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Minister Hill, for your words and for your continued partnership. Less than a month ago, on August 28th, that we met in El Salvador and signed a key agreement, a letter of intent with 4 different areas of collaboration. And this agreement today is one significant step forward under that agreement, and it was an honor to be hosted by President Bukele in San Salvador in a little more ornate setting than we have today. But it's very good to be here with you again. As Minister Hill outlined, El Salvador is a critical partner for the United States in promoting the security and prosperity of Central America and has been a reliable partner in the Northern Triangle. Indeed, on the migration issue, the shared responsibility that you just heard Minister Hill articulate is absolutely essential to make progress. And President Bukele has stated that he intends to end forced migration within his term for economic or security reasons, a very powerful commitment to the Salvadoran people. And from what we've seen, El Salvador has stepped forward and made good on those efforts just in your first 100 days, a very productive 100 days. And I'd like to commend the Bukele administration for their efforts in this regard. Since President Bukele took office, apprehensions of Salvadoran nationals at our southwest border have declined by over 62%. I think a very telling result of some of your security efforts and your social fabric efforts in El Salvador. You've been a leader in the region, countering smugglers and traffickers, transnational criminal organizations and gangs, and other nefarious actors that violate the rule of law. And DHS is grateful for your partnership and looks forward to building on it. I would also like to commend your recent September 12th, I think on your 100th day in office, announcement of 300 border police and 800 police and soldiers, 300 immigration agents and 800 police and soldiers. A very substantial commitment to patrol areas near La Achadura, the crossing with Guatemala, where human smugglers are trying to avoid scrutiny as they bring vulnerable people through the region towards our border. And we think that's a very important step. And that's why this today we're very happy to announce the signing of this cooperative agreement between the United States and El Salvador to build protection capacity alongside the security and economic efforts included in our letter of intent signed last month. This will build on the good work we have accomplished already with El Salvador's neighbor, Guatemala, in building protection capacity to try to further our efforts to provide opportunities to seek protection for political, racial, religious, or social group persecution as close as possible to the origin of individuals that need it. So it's a very important statement. It furthers El Salvador's commitment alongside the UN High Commissioner for Refugees to develop their asylum system further. We are proud to be partners with El Salvador in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Time for just a few questions. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up. Just get to our media inquiry box and we'll follow up quickly. Zola?
Can you just elaborate on the details of this agreement? Are we right that if migrants now pass through El Salvador and continue on to the border, if they fail to apply, if they fail to apply and they got denied, that they would be that they could not obtain those protections at the U.S. border? Is that right?
So the core of this agreement is an asylum cooperative agreement. The core of it is recognizing El Salvador's development of their own asylum system and a commitment to help them build that capacity. As we work together to target irregular migration flows through the region, that is one potential use of the agreement, that individuals crossing through El Salvador should be able to seek protections there, and we want to enforce the integrity of that process throughout the region. But it's a broader part of our partnership on addressing migration flows in the region and supporting capacity building efforts that El Salvador has already stepped forward on in many ways during their administration.
Geneva.
Good afternoon. What other kinds of capacity building needs to be done in El Salvador, or what do you need to do in order to fulfill this agreement and move forward?
Minister Hill.
Basically, we need the U.S. support in two issues, for El Salvador, which are the two underlying issues that force people to leave our country. We need to increase our securities and really tackle down the gangs. Those individuals threaten people, those individuals kill people, those individuals request for the poorest and most vulnerable population to pay a fee just to cross streets. So we really, really, really need to tackle that underlying security issue with them. And also, we need more investment. We need investment initiatives from the United States and other parts of the world so that these people that are forced to flee the country because of lack of economic opportunities need to leave the country. Now, the details as far as immigration, we are talking about border security. We need information sharing. Those people that are deported from the United States to El Salvador, we need to have their biometrics in place. We need help in resettling those people, and giving them opportunities once they are deported from the United States. And we also need to talk and look at permanent solutions for the Salvadorians living in the United States. Also, we need help in increasing, and we're working on this through the H-2A visas to increase legal alternatives to safe migration of Salvadorians, so that Salvadorians will have the opportunity to legally come into the United States, work here, and then go. So there's a series of issues from which we need help, but we are really working together with the U.S. to tackle them, something that had not been done in the last 15 years.
Yes, thank you for doing this. So a question for the Secretary and a question for the Foreign Minister. You're not calling this a safe third country, but a lot of advocacy groups are saying that in spite of whatever the details are of the agreement, that El Salvador does not meet the conditions to process people seeking asylum elsewhere. So I was wondering, how you came about, with this agreement. And for the Foreign Minister, you said that you're seeking permanent solutions for Salvadorans in the U.S. The former government also did that, and the administration has actually dismantled TPS for Salvadorans. So what sort of negotiations are you doing to help Salvadorans in the U.S.? They're close to 2 million. Thank you.
Sure. Very briefly, any implementation of an asylum cooperation agreement by the Department of Homeland Security with a partner in the region or elsewhere will follow the requirements in the Immigration and Nationality Act, and this is no exception with El Salvador. They have a developing asylum capacity. We seek to support that and recognize it, and we seek to partner operationally where appropriate on ensuring that we can address irregular migration flows and the criminal organizations that profit from them in the region.
Okay, Maria. Right? I'll do it in English and Spanish.
Thank you.
First of all, a favor to all of you. Do not compare us to the last government or to the last administration. They are black. It's like black and white. Complete opposite. President Bukele changed our policy 180%. They were pro-Chavez. They were anti-U.S. The ambassador did not even speak English. They had no relationships with the United States. They were clearly anti-U.S. Our biggest ally within the Bukele's administration is the United States. We need to reconstruct and rebuild our relationships with the United States. The TPS is temporary, but there are also other measures that we are working on to find a permanent solution to this issue. We are talking about 196,000 people, Salvadorians, that have a legal status in the United States. 95 of them have jobs. 53% of them have mortgages. There are 200,000 Salvadorian, U.S. Salvadorian children, and these people have deeply, constructed or built roots within U.S. communities. They provide business, they provide employment to U.S. citizens. So they're hard workers. There are people that put their hand on their hearts to sing the national anthem of the United States and put their hand on their heart to sing the national anthem of El Salvador. They are people that have been, pay Social Security, they pay taxes, they have loans. They're hardworking. They're hardworking, and they are rooted within the United States of America. So it's not your typical, person that comes here. It's not. It's they're the contrary of sometimes the vision that the U.S. has of El Salvador, or your common folk have of El Salvador, the MS-13 or the gangsters or whatever. No. They are people working hours and hours, 2-3 jobs a day. They are people whose children are in the U.S. system. There are people whose children do not speak Spanish. There are children or people that have been living here for the last 18 years and contributing to the American economy, paying taxes, Social Security, and that's why we are so committed to finding alternative solutions to these people. They're totally different from the people that are here illegally. These people have a protective status, and they came here not because they want to come here. Yesterday I was sitting on a plane with a man who's an American citizen who's been living here for the last, I think, 30 years, and had to come here because he was threatened to death, during the war because of his ideology. And he has children, and he has grandchildren, and he has, I think, 4 businesses he was telling me about. But not living in El Salvador still hurts him. So, President Bukele's admission is not only to stop illegal migration, but to reverse migration. But that has to be done gradually. So that's why, and the U.S. government has been, and Congress have been extremely open and supportive to finding alternative ways to find a permanent and legal solution for our Salvadorians that are now under TPS.
Thank you, everybody. That's all the time we have. Secretary has another meeting.
Is this effective immediately, or just do
Follow
more
up with
steps?
me at the meeting.
We're holding conversations about, and trying to find solutions for them. The sooner the better. Si quieren se lo doy afuera en español. ¿Ah? If you need.
I do have to go. I'm sorry.
Bueno, in a nutshell, con el gobierno de los Estados Unidos estamos tratando de encontrar alternativas para estas personas que han vivido aquí por los últimos 18 años, que tienen 200,000 hijos, que nacieron en Estados Unidos, que tienen raíces en los Estados Unidos, que trabajan en los Estados Unidos, que generan empleo para los Estados Unidos, que han pagado taxes y seguridad social por los últimos 18 años, y por eso es que ambos gobiernos estamos convencidos en buscar soluciones con respecto a su situación de protección temporal. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. We'll take any follow-up.
Do you have any details about what this deal is actually going to do, or would we be able to see the text?
We'll follow up with you on that. The event was live streamed today.